want to send my kids to school. Being at home, it's a lot.
We all feel like the Zoom overload.
I'm afraid that my kids are going to fall behind.
We don't have our social interaction as usual.
We have concerns over students' mental health and well-being.
It's a tough process, everything you can imagine.
What we need to address is safely reopening the schools, and we need to make that a foundational principle.
Hello and welcome to the Learning Curve Back to School, a News 8 special. I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Tonight, we're taking a deep dive into an issue affecting hundreds of thousands of San Diego families, the shutdown of classrooms as the pandemic forces schools to start the new year with distance learning. From the challenges for students to the uncertainty for parents to the realities for teachers on the front lines, we've been working to address your concerns and get some answers. We start tonight with a look at where we are now when it comes to reopening and how we got here. Here's Shannon Handy.
This is the biggest challenge public education has faced in a generation.
Essentially, we're turning education on a dime.
I went into a little bit of panic mode, like every other parent.
The past several months have turned the education system we once knew into something no one ever anticipated.
This is a bigger challenge than anything I thought I might ever experience in my lifetime.
Coronavirus first hit the U.S. in January of 2020. On January 31st, the Trump administration declared a public health emergency implementing travel restrictions. That was followed by a state of emergency declaration in California on March 4th. On March 19th, Governor Newsom issued a stay-at-home order. While most schools had closed by then, it wasn't until April 1st when Newsom announced all schools should anticipate having to shut down for the remainder of the academic year.
We should not prepare to bring our children back into the school setting.
From there, distance learning ramped up, causing a wave of frustration amongst teachers, students, and parents.
He wasn't getting the learning that we were sending him to school for.
School districts throughout San Diego County admitted the system wasn't perfect, saying they didn't have much time to figure it out.
This was really intended to be a stopgap. We didn't have time to prepare for it.
With summer break came plans to improve virtual learning for the fall, though some districts like Poway Unified and Cajon Valley Union announced they'd be offering in-person instruction as well to those who preferred it.
As a therapist, I know it is really important for their social emotional well-being to be with each other.
Then came a major announcement from the governor on July 17th. With coronavirus cases on the rise, he ordered schools and counties on the state's watch list cannot reopen until that county has been off the list for 14 consecutive days, a feat San Diego is unlikely to accomplish anytime soon.
We all prefer in-classroom instructions for all the obvious reasons, social and emotional foundation, but only if it can be done safely.
And at this point, San Diego County hasn't met any of the metrics needed to get off that list. There have to be lower numbers, less hospitalizations, things like that. But some local districts say even if we come off of that list, they will continue with virtual learning until they feel it's safe to get back to class. And Carlo and I were just talking about this. Poway Unified, for example, said that the earliest they would go back, they just made this announcement, is not until at least January 2021. And even with everything going on, we know that that did take some parents by surprise. They thought they would have an option. Yeah, they did. And it's really been tough on school officials. It was tough to make that announcement, but that's what they feel is the safest right now. Difficult times to make those decisions. We've heard a lot of complaints and concerns from families about distance learning. They worry it's just not effective. But here in San Diego, there are existing independent learning programs that have proven to be successful for years. So could school districts adapt the same system when kids go online in the coming weeks? News 8's Lamore Abrams spoke to a student who completed such a program and went on to graduate from an Ivy League university.
That's right. The Ivy League grad sure made his parents proud, studying independently throughout high school, long before the pandemic made it sort of a requirement. This is where he did it, Mount Everest Academy. It is one of 2 independent online learning schools in the San Diego Unified School District. But as you'll see, it may not be a good fit for everyone. You did have to be pretty disciplined. Discipline alone isn't what got Jesse Barrera to complete 4 years of high school from home, then go on to graduate with honors from Harvard University. And pretty self-directed and pretty motivated. Nor was it his motivation alone. I think that
having teachers who know how to structure assignments so that students constantly sort of have something to do.
A structured schedule and a smart curriculum. That's what helped Barrera succeed at Mount Everest Academy. It's one of 2 public schools in the San Diego Unified School District offering what they call independent study.
That just gave me the opportunity to structure my day more how I wanted it, as opposed to sort of sitting in a classroom for 5 or 6 hours a day.
But to some, sitting in front of a screen for that long is much worse. This spring, many parents who are thrust into distance learning pulled their kids out just as fast.
She's having a terrible time. She does not learn well on Zoom.
Teaching her at home just isn't really working.
So how do schools like Mount Everest make the grade?
One of the biggest pieces that has led to our success is the rapport that my teachers build with families and with students.
That support is a big component, but Principal Courtney Brown says there's also a specific academic formula school districts can adapt now that virtual learning is returning in the fall.
If you look at our website now, you can see the teachers have laid out the content for their course for the entire year.
High school students get assignments and monthly calendars and engage with a teacher for 75 minutes a week for each course they're taking. It is essentially a part-time school.
Correct. Much more similar to college.
College prep in high schools sounds productive, but Barrera says it takes the right mindset to do well.
Students just aren't used to treating the being at home during the day as school time.
And as with most things in life, good communication skills are key.
You really have to learn how to self-advocate. So when a teacher's only seeing you once a week, they're not psychic, right? They don't necessarily know that you're struggling with something at home.
Brown says it'll also be up to teachers. They'll need to establish new procedures, perhaps more office Zoom hours for struggling students. For Barrera, even in the last few months at Harvard, he felt lucky to have those online tools handy.
Building in those good habits, building in that intrinsic motivation, all of those things, those can have long-lasting positive effects. So I think there are silver linings here.
And we know Barrera did something right because we just found out he was accepted to a master's program at Harvard. The program will be online for the first year.
Congratulations to him. Now, as we wait to go back into the classroom, we wanted to know what those classrooms will look like in the future. So I visited the Cajon Valley Union School District to find out.
Lots of signage, lots of reminders.
Officials at Chase Avenue Elementary School in El Cajon already have a good understanding of what classrooms should look like.
Students are grouped in small cohorts.
That's because for the past couple months, they've allowed children on campus as part of the Cajon Valley Union School District's summer enrichment program.
Is a large rocky object.
The setting, very similar to what parents and students can expect once in-person instruction is allowed for the upcoming school year.
Students actually adapt pretty quickly.
Principal Brian Hanley gave us a tour pointing out things like how often teachers are sanitizing.
The staff are cleaning the surfaces in the classroom throughout the day.
To the kids' pencils and crayons.
Our students all have their own supplies. They use what they need from their supply kit.
Not only do students have their own art supplies, but their own playground equipment as well.
We've used these scoops where they're assigned to the student, and then the scoops and the ball, they're able to play with another partner back and forth without touching the equipment.
You'll also see desks spread at least 6 feet apart. Fewer students in the classroom, face coverings on teachers as well as kids. They're required for those in the 3rd grade and higher. Community water fountains are disabled.
If a student doesn't bring a water bottle, we have water bottles for them.
And group areas have been eliminated.
I think one of the biggest changes is just what you're looking at, that you have individual student work areas, and you don't have that carpet in the front where all the students come up to and they're in a big group.
In addition, health screenings and temperature checks are done daily, and washing hands frequently is a must. Hanley says as the pandemic changes, so too could the classroom setting. But for now, he's confident with the system in place, saying district-wide, when given the green light, all of its schools will be ready to welcome back kids full-time.
One of the key things is the agility of a school or a district to adapt. Our district's prepared whenever that time comes.
And even with those safety measures in place, some parents just aren't sold on sending their kids back just yet.
All those changes, though, that's got to cost a lot of money.
Yeah, because you're talking about PPE for teachers and students. You're talking about cleaning supplies, and those students, again, have their own toys and their own art supplies, so that costs more money, too.
It's going to look very different and cost a lot of money, as we said.
Yeah, so another hurdle they have to get over.
Yeah.
Next, the debate among doctors and why parents should be prepared for more closures, even after schools reopen.
Plus, the new trend popping up as parents hire teachers for what are being called student pods. But first, one parent speaks for many, worried about what's happening to their child.
I have noticed the detrimental effects of the school closures. As a parent, I saw the complete deterioration and shutdown of my children's mental health and well-being.
So once schools do reopen for on-campus learning, should you send your child back? That's the question a lot of parents are grappling with right now. News 8's Marcella Lee has the varying opinions of doctors and explains why parents should be prepared for more school closures even after they reopen.
Just how safe is it to send your child back to the classroom? There's debate even among doctors. We spoke with two who have different perspectives. Both are parents themselves.
You know, this is a very rapidly changing situation that is potentially unpredictable.
Dr. Anita Gupta is an anesthesiologist and a mom who says she's not yet comfortable with sending her kids back to a physical classroom.
There's a lot of unanswered questions. First, what will the flu season look like when COVID-19 exists?
She says the virus is too new to know its impact.
As a scientist, as a physician, the data is not clear. The jury is out on what can happen long-term in children if they contract COVID-19.
Dr. Gupta says schools also need time to develop a plan to keep playgrounds safe, improve ventilation systems, and train teachers to handle sick children.
And there is no redos in children and families, and we want to do this right.
Here's the other school of thought.
I feel strongly that it's in the best interests of our kids to be back together.
Dr. Brent Rathbun, internal medicine physician and pediatrician with Sharpry-Steele, says the pandemic is taking a big toll on children's mental health.
It's unclear what kind of impact this ongoing social isolation will have on our kids.
Dr. Rathbun, who treats patients with COVID-19, says data shows children under 10 are at low risk of spreading COVID-19 or developing severe symptoms, and middle and high schoolers can decrease the risk by wearing masks, washing hands, and social distancing. He says most reopened schools in Asia and Europe that took those precautions have avoided a surge.
There have been very few cases that have been attributed to spread within schools.
As a physician and a father, you want your daughter to be able to go back to school?
Absolutely. I want nothing more for her to be able to go back to school as soon as the schools are ready to open.
California has a number of metrics that must be met before that can happen, including a maximum of 100 cases per 100,000 people, this orange line. San Diego County has spiked above it for more than a month. Schools can't reopen until the blue line falls back below the orange line and stays there for 14 days in a row. By the time that happens,
in the vast majority of cases, it would be safe for children to return to school.
But he suggests talking to your doctor about your family's risk, as both doctors do agree on this.
It is certainly on a family-by-family basis and a child-by-child basis.
There frankly isn't a one-size-fits-all solution. It's extremely complex.
And parents, here's something to keep in mind. A school will have to close if 5% of students and staff test positive for COVID-19. Out of, say, 500, that's 25 people. Governor Newsom's pandemic plan even has this warning, quote, over the course of the pandemic, most schools will likely face physical closure at some point due to COVID-19. Carlo, Shannon?
Some good information there. With most schools at this point starting the year online, some parents are scrambling for help or looking for alternatives. We're seeing more and more creating student pods, hiring tutors and teachers. With so much uncertainty surrounding the reopening of schools, parents throughout San Diego County have decided to take matters into their own hands.
I knew I had to do something different.
Rena Wolf has two kids, one entering kindergarten, the other heading into second grade. She's also a high school teacher who admits virtual learning isn't ideal when it comes to educating kids.
Myself and a lot of other parents felt like that model wasn't sustainable. It didn't go well. It didn't feel good. It was extremely challenging for everyone.
For that reason, Rena has put together a plan to host school in the yard of Rancenita's home. She's already hired 2 former teachers who were let go when their preschool shut down. So far, 9 families have shown interest in forming what's now commonly being referred to as student pods.
We're going to have to purchase shade structures and seating. We're really trying to figure out how we can accommodate everyone.
Online posts from families looking for tutors and teachers are popping up everywhere. Some are choosing to disenroll their kids from regular school altogether, either because they don't like what's being offered or have safety concerns. Others are creating student pods as an add-on, not an alternative.
Just trying to fill in the places that Zoom cannot fill in.
Kelly Sandman Hurley's son is going into 6th grade. Like most middle schoolers, he'll be at a new school, so she wanted to figure out a way he can socialize with his new classmates. She started a Facebook group asking parents if they would be interested in doing the same. So far, it's taken off.
We're not necessarily hiring anybody. We're all pulling our own expertise and our own resources to do things like a running club, a tennis club, a book club. We might go for a bike ride.
Like Kelly says, rules are in place to ensure the safety of everyone. If needed, Kelly will also consider hiring help. But for many families, that's not an option, either because they can't afford it or don't understand the system.
Sometimes it's their language barrier and the knowledge of how they would even go about it.
Jan Mago is working to change those disparities. She volunteers with an organization called Uplift, offering free tutoring to those who need it.
That's why we're here. We always consider ourselves sort of a gap-filling organization.
Jan hopes families will take advantage of these services they offer. As for Rena and Kelly, like most parents, they're just trying to navigate as best they can through a world none of us have experienced before.
We can make this a good thing for our kids.
And if you'd like to get in contact with that tutoring organization, log on to cbs8.com and click on the help button. And Carla, we were just talking about this during the story. There are lots of other resources that parents can turn to.
There's the worry here about the haves and have-nots. Are there free resources for parents who can't spend extra?
There are a ton online. You can get the free tutors. So there's a lot out there. You just got to be diligent about searching for it.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. And next, school sports. There's been a huge push to let families decide.
We'll take a closer look at school closures on student athletes.
High school sports have been postponed, but it's not just about the start dates. There's potential scholarship implications and a strikeout scenario for some athletes as they have to decide which sport they want to play. I'm Eric Connors. That story coming up.
And to stay up to date on the latest information regarding schools, just text the keyword schools to 858-571-8888. We will send you a link where you can check out what your child's school district is doing for the fall and the latest on their plans for reopening.
Like most parents, I'm preparing for the upcoming school year, reading over all the plans. Wait, I can't prepare at all because so much is still up in the air and plans are changing by the week. I have 3 kids in elementary school, so like you, I'm stressed out. Will we be distance learning? Will I have to wear my teacher's cap again and juggle Zoom classes, assignments, homework, and projects? I think as parents we can all agree it'd be great for the kids to be back in the classroom when it is safe. And we can all help our kids by wearing a mask and practicing social distance. It's going to bring those numbers down, a requirement to open schools. Besides academics, athletics is also a big unknown right now. The California Interscholastic Federation has postponed fall sports until this winter. I met up with some student athletes recently to see the major impact it's having on them. When it comes to football and other high school sports, there's a lot up in the air right now. It's having a big impact on student athletes. The schedule is being pushed back. We're in Scripps Ranch right now, and we have Nicholas Gardenera here. Nicholas, you're a senior Scripps Ranch High School football player. You and I can play a little catch and keep our social distance here. When you found out that the fall football schedule was being pushed back to December, right? Mid-December, what was going through your mind?
It was definitely very hard news to hear at first. Obviously being a senior, just want to get out there and have my senior season. But it was definitely good news that they scheduled a date in December.
I understand you're a very talented running back and have had some schools looking at you. What impact has it had on that?
Well, now that the season's getting pushed back, it's some lost time and some lost film that I would have had from this fall. to send to these schools to hopefully get some more scholarships. But now we have a few months, and I kind of have to wait and see what's going to happen. Some Ivy League schools and some California schools, and would definitely hate to miss an opportunity to go to one of those schools because of this delay.
Here's your dad right here.
Hey.
Hey, so Marlon, tell us a little bit about the season, and when you got this news, what was going through your mind as the head coach at Scripps Ranch?
Well, as a head coach, you have to wait patiently. But what I wanted to hear is that we're going to have a season.
And for so many other student athletes here in Scripps Ranch, whether it's the ball fields or the swimming pool, it's not so much the scholarship implications, it's the fact that they're multi-sport athletes, and the way the scheduling happens, they may have to make a very difficult decision. Sarah Reed, a senior at Scripps Ranch High School, you play several sports.
Yes, I do. I'm a tri-varsity athlete. I play field hockey, water polo, and I also swim.
And you might have to make a decision come winter, spring, right?
Yes, that is true. The CIF sent out a schedule, and it so happens that water polo and field hockey are in the same category. And I've had so many great experiences, wins, loss, memories with both teams, and it would be very difficult to pick one.
What is your message to San Diegans?
This whole thing has been going on for 3 months, even longer, and people still can't wear face masks anywhere. And that's the biggest thing that's going to slow down the spread.
If the cases can trend down, hopefully it's a better chance that some people like me will be able to have their senior seasons.
Keep your distance. We have to set an example as children, as coaches, as a football program, because we need adults to chip in and do the same so we can get back to school, back to sports.
Everybody's hoping for some kind of back to normal. Parents are worried about how staying at home is impacting their kids' mental health. Coming up, why a mental health expert says the best way to help children right now is to help yourself.
Plus, they have an important voice in this conversation. How do teachers feel about potentially heading back to the classroom? We ask them next. But first, the head of the Chula Vista Elementary School District admits learning online can mean learning less.
Less instructional minutes. So for example, for 4th through 6th would be, I believe it's over 4 hours, for kinders 3 hours. So, but also we plan to extend the learning through project-based learning and some other online activities.
Just as many families have struggled with school closures and distance learning, so have teachers.
Yeah, I spoke with several from various local districts about everything from distance learning to their thoughts on returning to the classroom.
I just don't think it's safe. I wish that it were different, but I just don't.
A lot of teachers are feeling anxious, are having trouble sleeping.
Of course, there's a lot that can still happen online, but our kids need to be in schools.
I really miss the children. I really miss the kids. I want to be there for them.
For high school teacher Jessica Davis, 4th grade teacher Courtney Green, 5th grade teacher Christina Cortuccio, and kindergarten teacher Corinna Kitchen, the past several months haven't been easy.
I really thought that it would be a much smoother transition than it was.
It was heartbreaking not seeing my students.
For starters, they miss their students, throw in virtual teaching, and they've run into issues, everything from students having trouble connecting to the internet to others who wouldn't show up and distractions at home.
They knew that their grade couldn't be adversely affected, so they just weren't participating. So it was very demoralizing for me as a teacher as well.
It was a challenge for me working from home because I have 2 children under 5.
Due to the ongoing pandemic, all 4 will begin the new school year teaching online. But we wanted to know, if given the chance right now, how they'd feel about going back inside a classroom. Jessica, who teaches at Sweetwater High School, isn't comfortable just yet.
I just don't think, given the number of cases that we're seeing on a daily basis, that we can adequately protect not just the teaching staff, but even more importantly, students. I think more than anything, an adequate vaccine is key.
Courtney, a teacher at Kellogg Elementary in Chula Vista, feels the same.
For me to feel safe, I would need to see a significant decline in cases.
Meanwhile, both Corinna, who teaches at Willow Grove Elementary in Poway, and Christina, a teacher at La Jolla Elementary, say they're ready to head back.
I think what my elementary school and what the elementary schools are putting into place, I'm comfortable with what they're doing.
We have the guidelines. It's just about implementing them in order to get the kids back where they need to be.
At the very least, they like families and teachers to have the option.
We're not talking about going back to the way that it used to be. I totally am referring to safety protocols in place. I'm not fearful at all.
Virtual or not, these teachers say they will continue doing the best they can under whatever circumstances come their way.
The teachers want to be in the classroom, and we are trying our best to make certain that students learn in this unprecedented experience that we're all having to navigate together.
So great to hear from them, Shannon. And a lot of times teachers are treated at this monolith, a single entity. They all think the same. They all are too worried. But they have just as many mixed feelings as everyone else does in this.
Yeah, you heard it there. I mean, there might be some teachers who live with someone with health issues, so they're scared to go in. There's other teachers, as you heard, who feel it's 100% safe. But what I'm hearing from teachers and parents is that they just want to have the option. Yeah. They don't want it to be all or nothing.
Either way, when we do open, let's hope we're able to do it in a safe way and a consistent way and not have to shut down in 2 weeks. That would be terrible.
Exactly. We're all hoping for the same thing.
Yeah.
All right. Some families are struggling with the mere thought of returning to distance learning.
It did not go well for many of them the last time around, and as districts continue to make plans, they have plans of their own.
There might be some potatoes down there. He wasn't getting the learning that we were sending him to school for. We kind of unschooled and checked in with our teacher once a week.
7-year-old Ivor Spenceley is proud of the vegetables he planted in the spring. It was part of a remote learning school project after his mom, Stacy, made it a point to log her son off Zoom. She says the worksheets and videos simply didn't engage him. Now their family is waiting to see what distance learning will look like this year. San Diego Unified educators admit they've learned a lot of lessons last spring. They're promising an improved learning model moving forward.
We all feel like the Zoom overload.
We're now clearer about the kind of support, that teachers, parents, and students need.
The district says there will be a 6-hour school day with up to 3 hours of live instruction from teachers. And unlike the spring, students will be graded. Parents are stressed about their kids' mental health. We've heard from you, and we know that you're worried about possible damage to kids from social isolation and their development. We took some of your concerns to a local expert. John Laidlaw is Director of Clinical Services at North County Lifeline, a community-based human services organization. He's also a therapist himself.
The first thing I want to get into is already what we've seen. What kind of impact has being kept out of schools had on kids already?
So the short-term effects are, irritability, lots of different non-specific anxiety disorders, more depressive disorders. We're seeing sleep schedules really being affected in kids. We're seeing a lot of parents having the same type of symptoms, and then the children watching their parents and, feeling that energy, getting the energy from the parents also that there's something wrong and stressful, and the way the kids handle that is different.
John Laidlaw says with these changes there will be some setbacks in development, especially for younger children.
Because of the stress, a lot of developmental delays will start happening. The not being in school is also is a huge impact on just regular development, interactions with other children. I think, really being able to connect with the teacher one-on-one is more difficult to do in virtual classrooms. It's harder for a one-on-one connection to really build.
That means that parents' role is larger and maybe more important than ever. They need to work to keep their kids engaged and on track.
You really want to set those schedules. You want to, as much as you can, keep those connections. A lot of them are virtual, and I think that's something for parents that's difficult. You both want them off the screens, but you want them connected to their friends. And then also school is happening on the screen. So I think there's a lot of concern.
It's a roller coaster for parents. Schools are going to try to be in. They're going to try hybrid. They're going to be all at home. The message changes week to week, day to day, hour to hour. How important is it for parents to model for their kids that these are difficult times, but we're going to be all right?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, which is that message, and that their mental health is very, very important. Them taking care of themselves and working on their stress levels. We're all affected by it, but our kids are watching, and they're sponges. And so, when there's high levels of stress, which there's going to be for everybody, but, making sure that they're managing their stress, that they're getting exercise, that they're keeping up a routine, that they're keeping up with their social connections, basic things, getting up and taking a shower in the morning, putting clean clothes on, things that we do in most normal circumstances, we want to kind of force ourselves to do. And it's so important for parents to take care of themselves so that they then can present to their children that everything's going to be okay.
It's a lot to handle. In addition to all the other problems caused by the pandemic, Laidlaw says if you're overwhelmed or if your child is, remember that you can reach out for help.
When you're struggling, you don't exactly know why you're not feeling the way that you're feeling, there are people that will help you. You call 211 and they can get you to a provider that is using telehealth within our system of care and is there to help.
By taking care of themselves, Laidlaw says that parents will be doing the best thing they can for their kids. He also tells them this:
that kids are resilient and that everything is going to be okay. I think would be the main message. We're going to have to, deal with the increase in stress, and we want to take active measures to reduce the immediate effects, that are, going throughout the community, and everybody's affected by it. But ultimately, that kids are resilient, that we are resilient, and that things are going to be okay.
But again, if you need help or your child needs help, there are many resources. Here are a few of them. North County Lifeline helps low-income and underserved communities. NAMI San Diego is a great resource to find help. And you can also just call 211. That's the county helpline. And Shannon, being out of school can also make it easier for struggling kids who are dealing with mental illness, to fall through the cracks, because so many times teachers or counselors would have been the first ones to notice, and that safety net's now gone.
Yeah, and teachers also the first ones to notice, say, a child maybe is abused at home. So a lot of concerns there.
Absolutely. Missing a lot.
They may have the biggest stake in reopening. Next, how some students created their own coronavirus task force.
Plus,
no one knew what they were doing. we didn't, I think we were mostly afraid.
Faced with homeschooling, a local mom turns to social media and gets support from around the world. But first, the president of the San Diego Unified School Board makes it clear he's frustrated too.
In the 160 years of the district, I can find no other time that has faced this type of crisis. We have recently received guidelines from the state and public health officials that it's okay to open public schools, but have been given no information on how public health officials will assist us with testing, tracing, and personal protective equipment.
We've heard from district officials, teachers, as well as parents about the reopening of schools. But what about students? A group of Poway Unified High Schoolers have formed their own task force to offer input, saying it's important for district officials to hear their concerns as well.
We wanted to make a difference.
While some students view summer as a time to forget about school, Liliola and Daniel Shaw are doing the exact opposite.
We feel that because the district's primary purpose is to serve its community of students, the students should have an opportunity to present a comprehensive reopening plan of our own.
These soon-to-be Westview High School seniors helped create the Poway Unified School District Coronavirus Response Student Task Force. Together with other students, they developed a survey asking both parents and kids throughout the district about their input related to reopening schools.
To show them that we all want to have an input into everyone's education and safety.
In total, they received about 1,000 responses. Using that information as well as their own research, they put out this 24-page report detailing what they found as well as what they recommend.
If local conditions do allow reopening, and of course this is all dependent on what the local conditions look like, then we would be conditionally in favor of reopening.
Initially, the task force opposed a delay reopening date. Poway Unified was scheduled scheduled to start August 19th. That's since been pushed back to September 2nd. Daniel says the group now supports the move, but has a number of recommendations. For starters, with the school year starting virtually, they'd like online classes capped at 20 students to help with performance. Also, screen time breaks should be enforced. Based on survey results, some other suggestions include providing resources to help seniors with the college admissions process and ensuring families who can't care for their children at home have alternative options.
If it's possible to have schools reopen only for those students while maintaining as much social distancing as possible, then that is something we can look into.
The task force has presented their report to the Poway Unified School Board. A district spokesperson tells News 8, quote, "Our students' proactive stance in offering recommendations regarding PUSD reopening plans is to be commended and is much appreciated."
And those task force members tell me they want to keep this open dialogue going throughout the school year. In fact, they plan to conduct more surveys in the future.
Finding balance with school out, parents are turning to each other, often through Facebook, for some answers. A San Diego mom decided to start her own forum to help people navigate the new world of living through a pandemic. And as News 8's Lamore Abrams shows us, the page is reaching users all over the world.
Between blogs, social networks, and yes, Zoom calls, there is definitely a lot of information to go through as a parent. But this new Facebook page here is offering people all over the world some clarity and emotional support.
I went into a little bit of panic mode, like every other parent, I'm sure.
When everything went into lockdown back in March,
no one knew what they were doing. we didn't, I think we were mostly afraid.
Allison Harris-Turk harnessed that fear on Facebook.
I decided to start just a conversation via a Facebook group with some friends, like, hey, let's put all our resources together. Let's talk about, like, what do you have? What are you hearing? How can I help you? How can I help your school?
What she thought would be a forum for her San Diego community,
like, hey, let's put all our resources together.
Turned into a safe space for people all over the world.
Once we hit 10,000 members, that was when I started to really pay attention to the data, and I noticed, like, oh my goodness, there's people from over 50 countries.
Learning in the time of Corona now has more than 15,000 members, and growing so fast, the Facebook page has volunteer moderators, moms helping steer controversial conversations like education.
We make sure that people keep it appropriate, it doesn't go political.
Politics or not, Kara Winship says members, complete strangers, continue seeking out advice from one another.
Different homeschooling options, which it seems like that's where a lot of parents are going.
The page has plenty of teachers too, helping parents with that frantic feeling, the feeling of the unknown involving the upcoming school year.
I'm actually on that page. There are a lot of great resources and a lot of great conversations.
It's good to know it's working. You're getting some support out there.
Yeah.
Coming up next, playing politics with education.
Our first-time voters weigh in on education. I'm Abby Alford in our Learning Curve special on how the students say this will play a role in the November election.
Politics is rearing its head in education, and first-time voters say there's no place for it. News 8 has been following a group of first-time voters in San Diego since last fall, tackling a number of issues. News 8's Abby Alford has their opinions on education.
News 8's first-time voters will be starting their first or second year of college online. While there's one student who believes we need to get rid of that in-classroom instruction altogether and move it online, others say we need to bring it back to campus. They wholeheartedly believe that politics has a lot to do with this, and it will play a role in the presidential election. Fresh out of high school or starting their second year of college, first-time voters are keeping tabs on education and its current climate.
The biggest question is nobody is asking is why. Why do we need to bring students back into the classroom to do everything that they could do online and that we know for a fact isn't really helping them?
I think having the in-person learning is vital to have in some situation for some different people.
I don't think it's really a student-only thing that we need to take into account here. I think it has to do with staff, it has to do with janitorial, it has to do with administration, and obviously teachers as well.
News 8's been following first-time voters. They're students across San Diego County coming from different socioeconomic backgrounds and political views. Since October, we've met for Democratic presidential debates. Education has come up a few times, but now with the pandemic, it's in the front row.
Politics are playing, I think, almost an even bigger role in education today because everybody's trying to chime in about what education means or what education we're supposed to open, we're supposed to all these types of things without really asking the question of why.
Money's also a big issue for school districts. President Trump has threatened to withhold federal funds if schools don't reopen on campus in the fall.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but wouldn't that harm schools in more impoverished communities?
Higher education is impacting these first-time voters. Diego Estrada graduated from Morse High School in Southeast San Diego. He's been accepted to the Ivy League school Cornell University, which is starting online in the fall. He's torn between staying home to be safe and to save money or move to the New York campus for the experience.
Masks everywhere, assigned seats, no orientation week. It's going to be online. So a lot of things is kind of like, I don't know, you have to weigh the benefits of going back.
Whether it's going back to the classroom or teaching online, first-time voters say education will matter when they vote November 3rd. Many of the first-time voters say that they know who they'll vote for come November, but admit that that could all change, just like the decisions being made about education. In University Heights, I'm Abby Alford for News 8.
Shannon, what I'm hearing from a lot of those kids, as much as what you said we've heard from parents and teachers, there's not one solution. They want to have options.
Yeah, I mean, these are bright kids. You heard from them, so they want their opinions to matter. And keep in mind, if our lawmakers are contributing to whatever decisions are made with education, these voters are paying attention.
They'll make an impact.
Yep, they certainly will. Parents get creative to celebrate their kids' successes. That's next.
Even though this year's send-off may not look the same with photos of kids with big backpacks and big smiles in front of their schools, we know it can be a great year still, and you'll be there cheering them on.
That's right. We want to leave you now with a look back at what students have already achieved by celebrating some graduation milestones. Thank you for watching.
For us to even have the opportunity to parade through our campus one more time is phenomenal for us.
I was kind of worried that I wouldn't get to graduate because of the pandemic, and I'm glad that Point Loma set up a ceremony for us.
Coronado High School class of 2020 graduation.
It's better than a Zoom graduation.
Congratulations, class of 2020.
I am certain this isn't how we envisioned our graduation day, but the thing about us, the class of 2020, is that our resilience has been and continues to be stronger than our circumstances.
It's brought a lot of joy to so many people.
Everybody is feeling helpless and we don't know what to do, and not that a yard sign can fix this situation that we're in, but it does show the students that we love them and we're thinking of them, and we truly are all in this together.
Kids didn't expect not to ever come back to school. Kids didn't expect not to play their last game. All those things that go along with the high school experience, they missed out the last quarter of the year.
I don't know, I'm just overwhelmed with just how much love the school gives me. I'm just gonna miss it so much.
That is so wonderful.
And I just really appreciate how much they did for this graduation. It's really important to all of us.